Yes, sir. I wish to talk about your soiled undergarments and how they smell of your mother. Bring my pigeon!
Let's give it loud, everybody, for Anthony Eugenio. We're gonna have a next time. Very funny. Wayne Russell, everybody.
Welcome to the Open Mic Pain with Anthony and Wayne podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an Open Mic Pain with Anthony and Wayne. We got a special guest edition this week. We're really excited to have on a local comedian we've done shows with and that we really admire, because he's goddamn hilarious. Please give it up for Alex Mann. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's up, guys? How are you? Thanks for having me.
Definitely. And as always, we have a really interesting story for the the co-host tonight. God came down to him from heaven and told him that he needed to build an ark and put 2 animals on each one because he was going to flood his fucking basement, and he sure did. How you doing, Wayne?
A little waterlogged, but I'm doing okay.
Yeah, are your sneakers full of water, like half inch up or something?
Not at the moment. No, I vacuumed out, wet vacked about 6 loads of a 5-gallon wet vac, so I had about 30 gallons of water on my floor, where I'm sitting right now. So,
well,
can I make a joke about how many loads you've just had to get rid of? I mean,
absolutely.
Sorry, I know I've already started off. Sorry, Anthony. I just.
No. That's actually probably low on the amount of loads that Wayne gets rid of before the podcast list anyways on a normal day. It actually interrupted his normal load production. Shit. So Alex, all right. So what got you into comedy? Tell us about like your first open mics experience and all that shit. Like what got you into it?
Sure. It was, I started off as one of those friends at the end of the bar that all my buddies were like, just you're the funny one, kind of always had the quick wit. Became kind of a bucket list thing. So when I started looking into doing some open mics, I tried a few. The thing with an open mic, and I think a lot of people agree with this, is that you're going and hoping that you're going to get a laugh the first few, and you realize this is other comedians doing their material. So it's kind of like a porn star going to watch a porno. There's no real connection to it. So then somebody actually gifted me a improv class down in Providence. And shortly after that, my life totally changed. Like I was doing improv all over Rhode Island and Mass. And it really kind of just changed like the things that I was doing for a brief period of time before COVID. I actually opened my own improv place. And it was putting on shows and hosting teams that weren't getting like fair amounts of time. So, and then I was doing shows in Pawtucket with Bring Your Own Improv. And the day I knew that comedy was my thing was when we were doing shows at the Hasbro Children's Hospital. I know this is a bummer, but this is a place where like kids are maybe a 50-50 chance, and seeing some of these kids getting up, smiling and laughing, and then their families stop you and say that, that's the first time I've seen them smile since the diagnosis. And, and you come out of there with a team of people and you kind of go, wow, we did something. That's when I realized, I've had an audience of 250 people, but one kid named Mikey changed my life.
That's
awesome.
Incredible. There's so many reasons to do comedy, and I kind of like look back at like the movie Patch Adams, right? That was based off of a real story, but like the comedy is overall meant to make people happy, and who better to do that? Or who better to give that gift to than somebody who, in that position, I guess is what I'll say. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, thank God it was improv, by the way. I couldn't imagine if I had to do my set in front of a poor kid who'd have to listen to that. I'd be like, let me talk about assholes for a little while, for about 4 minutes. They
would probably still hit. I mean, these were, the parents might have been a little bit, what the heck, but sorry, it's about the kid.
Yeah. I did my first ever, it wasn't impressive at all, but the first ever time that someone said, hey, I'll give you some money to do stand-up, was at a bar in Maine. And there it was sparsely populated, and I had nothing but just the most depraved jokes of all time to do. And then finally some people walked in, like 4 couples, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. but it was next to a beach, and then all of their 6-year-old kids came in to a bar. By the way, during a stand-up show, and
I mean, it's
I was
Maine.
just going up. It is Maine. Yeah, that's true. And then they all sat in front of me, and I said to the host, I said, "Hey, I don't know what to do now." And he's like, "Fully send it. Fully send your whole thing and do it." And I was like, "All right." I wasn't good enough to adapt or do anything, and I did it 100% into those kids' faces. I changed their lives for sure. I see you changed kids' lives for the better. I did for the worse.
Well, I did a fundraiser a little over a year ago for a family who had a teenage driver crash into their house. And so when I was the second person on, and it was Serenity Jones who put me on. It was like the first really kind of like I want you in a show, like kind of name on a bill. And two things happened. The first one was I walked out and said, "Well, I was really happy that it wasn't my kid that you hit the house because he just got his license." And I was like, I knew I was kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, and they just were in tears laughing. And then after about 10 minutes, I realized there was like a toddler in the room. And I mean, I'm very Irish, very Boston. And I was like, could someone have told me that there was a child here? And they're like, don't worry about it. I go, don't worry about it till you have a parent-teacher conference and they want to know why your kid's swearing.
Yeah, they pick it
That
up.
bad man from
I have a
Boston.
2-year-old. Yeah, they pick it up. Because do you have kids, Alex?
Oh, yeah, I got 4.
Okay, so you know. There's a point where you're like, they don't pick up what you're saying. There's no way. You can say, fuck, all you want. And there's a point where they're like 2 years old and they're like, they sponge it. And you're like, man, yeah, you can't say shit in front of these kids anymore. They will tell
Just
a
wait.
full joke.
Because all 4 of my kids have 1 degree of my sense of dark humor, one way or another. And they truly are all savages in their own right. And I pity anyone that they pick on. It's like, it's my fault. When send me the bill for your therapist because my kids traumatized you.
Oh, if you had to draft, like if you were starting an NFL team, but the game instead was shitting on people, Irish people from fucking Boston, that's like LeBron James. Like, you guys got that down. I think it's better than that.
You got me the best when we were down in Milford at Craft Roots. You made me laugh the hardest that I've ever laughed at any open mic show or anything. It was, I don't know if you remember, but the lady, there's a lady there, and you were like, "Hey, check out Woodstock over here." And I was thinking initially, Woodstock, like the music festival. Then I turned around, and I was like, "What? I don't get it." And you said Snoopy, and it was the perfect comparison. Her hair was like bleach blonde yellow. It was fluffy, like, dude, it was so good. I don't think I've ever laughed so hard. So
I do
if you can bring that quick wit throughout your daily life, and your kids can do that.
All right. So, well, then that's the weird thing. When my first time in the improv classes, by the second class, the teachers were both like, "Have you done this before?" And I'm like, "I'm Irish Catholic and grew up in Boston, and I work in a jail." And they went, "Oh." So I'm very much used to having that. Like, I don't take anything personal anyone says. You can say the worst, most offensive thing to me, and I just kind of come back and go, "That's all you got?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, my mom hurts me better on my birthday. You got to really work to hurt me.
Are you a CO?
I am. 28 years this June.
Oh, well, congrats.
Thank you.
So your sense of humor must help.
Oh, absolutely. There's it's one of those things that I've always used to kind of diffuse a situation. It kind of humanizes the moment. You know, somebody's having a bad day. You know, you don't know what their education level is. You don't know what their background is. You don't know what the history is. But funny is funny.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get them to kind of chuckle, all of a sudden they kind of go, "All right, maybe today is not the day I'm going to beat up the CO."
Yep.
Do they know you do stand up in there?
So it has started to circulate. I kept a secret for a good while.
I can see why.
Like I actually kept it a secret from everybody for a while, and then I was at a conference, like an American Jail Association conference in Omaha, Nebraska, and I was like, how often do I get a chance to come out to Omaha? So I searched for a place to do a set, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, I'll put you on. I'll give you 15." I went, "Okay." So everyone in our entourage was like, "Hey, we're going to this particular event for this at this particular bar," and I went, "I'll catch up to you." And they're like, "Why?" And I said, "I got something." They're like, "We're in Omaha. How do you have anything?" So the secret came out. So next thing I know, like 20 people from various jails all showed up to see the CO go up and make people laugh. So that was cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, let's
Yeah,
organize a Folsom Prison show like Johnny Cash, but we'll just fucking do dick jokes.
well, I mean, honestly, I think that's one of those things that if like we teach all different kinds of things, right? And I'm all for that. But I think if you could teach the simple basics of improv, where it's yes and listening to what's being said to you, looking at body language, how are you presenting your body language, how to give it off better, right? Those are all called gifts. And if you also started saying to somebody, look, this is the basics of how to tell a joke. This is a form of communication that if you can start laughing and not personalizing, it can break some barriers down. So I would love to see that kind of take off in reality.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I was working in Maine once, and they were talking about doing shows at prisons and getting the prisoners involved and stuff like that. So I think that's a pretty fucking cool. Like, imagine the diffusion of tension that you can give them if they had the ability to shit on each other without taking offense to it. Like, that is really the biggest thing about stand-up is you just do develop this thick skin of never being offended really by anything. Like, it's so hard to... Like, even my wife, like, she can throw anything at me now, and I'm like, I don't care. It's not worse than what Alex called me at Craft Roots. That's it.
Yep.
So how long? I might have said, but how long total have you been doing stand-up?
So performing as a comedian 8 years. I started a little bit of stand-up, went into the improv thing for a good while. Found a lot of crazy success working with people. Had a great time. It was like working with teams. But then, so improv led me into acting, which got me actually into SAG pretty quick. So then I was started being asked to do readings for different things, and that was like I was shocked, right? But so I needed reels, like video of me kind of doing stuff, and the easiest way to do it is to have a stand up where they see you, they see your stage presence, they see how you carry yourself, how you can change your voice, and character development stuff like that. And then the craziest thing was. I had a reel and a casting agency had said, "Hey, we like your accent. We have this commercial potentially for the Super Bowl. It's for a beer. Would you do a line?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Not a problem." I was excited. They wanted me to read a line. So I get the thing. I read the line. I send it off. I don't get the part, but I don't care. It's like I was happy to get that far. So I found out from some friends who got cast in other parts of this thing. It was a Sam Adams commercial. And I was like, oh, all right, well, that's pretty cool. I was happy for them. So at the Super Bowl, we're all at a buddy's house, and we're waiting for the Sam Adams commercial to come on. And I said, I know what the line is. It's, do you want to go to the opera? I've got 2 tickets. And it's supposed to be like the tough Boston jerks talking to New York fans, right? So I'm watching it, and the commercial comes on. Everyone's like, and it's like 30 of my friends. And I find out it was Lenny Clark got the part. I was like, I had no chance.
Oh my God.
Like, so I'm dying to actually meet Lenny Clark and go, you stole my part. Like,
That sucks. I imagine any casting agent in the world right now, if they have to go like, hey, why don't you get a Boston accent for somebody to do a quick line? I mean, Lenny Clark they're like, try to get Lenny, and then anybody else have his backup.
yeah, and to be honest, I mean, for me, I thought it was cool. I was like, when I saw it, I was like, there was no way I was ever going to get that part with him in it. So I was like, okay, it's not like I lost it to somebody who I've seen or like is terrible at an open mic. I was like, he's comedy gold. He's royalty. I don't mind losing to him.
Yeah.
I want to tease him about it, but
So you've started producing your own shows as well.
Yeah.
Is that recent, or have you been doing that for years?
So producing shows I started doing when I was in the improv world. And so what ended up happening was I'm a member of this yacht club. I know that screams white privilege. I'm a social member. I don't have a boat. I have friends with boats. But they knew I did the acting. They knew I did comedy. So they said, "Hey, we are looking to do different stuff, and would you mind putting together a comedy show?" I said, "Absolutely. I know some people." So I reached out to some friends that I know in the area, and then I reached out to Carolyn Plummer, who I've done some workshops
She's
with,
fantastic.
and I'm telling you, she just kills.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had Michelle Trainer, who has a Amazon special. She tours nationally, and she has a thing called the Divorce Diaries. So I mean, the show sold out. It was like, honestly, it was fantastic. It was a wicked highlight. It's tough when you're producing shows though because everything's on you. The budget,
Mm-hmm.
the producing, getting the word out, the advertising. Um, but what I found was I have a knack for talking to venue owners to say, hey, let's put on a show. I'll take on all the cost, and that way it doesn't cost you anything. So, like, I'll take an overtime. But what I always do is I'll work like extra, bank the money that I have to make sure my talent is getting paid, and then that way, whatever, if I break even, I break even. I don't really care. I'm just having fun.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very, very lucky to be able to pull some very funny friends up and seen some people kind of really develop and take a shot. And so that's turned into now producing shows down at the Working Man Distillery in Pawtucket, and waiting for a final confirmation for another place that's in Massachusetts that looks like that might be monthly shows too. So I've just been lucky. Like things, I shouldn't be where I'm at. Like you know what I mean. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a CO. But I ended up having my own improv club. I've gotten to travel the world. I've gotten to festivals. I've been in movies and TV shows. Like this is paying it forward. Like I'm never going to be a famous comedian, but if I can get my friends some stage time and a
Mm-hmm.
big audience and put some money in their pocket, totally I'm down with that.
That's a really cool thing about stand up is it is like I know the feeling of doing like let's say you're doing a room of 70 to 100 people that are really into the show and it's intimate. That feels, I imagine, as good as a theater or anything. The best people doing stand up, you are getting that feeling. So to me, it's always just about chasing the crowds. Like wherever you like, if you're doing an open mic, there are ones out there that have crowds in them to go to, and man, it's there's no describable feeling like a really electric audience. So it's cool that you were able to put some on that did that.
There's always that moment after the show. Like I want to kind of like kibitz with the audience afterwards, and kind of just touch base to see how they, what they thought and how they, did they have a good time. And it's kind of fun where like, maybe one to two, maybe three people just genuinely felt the joke. Like they identified with it. They had to come talk to you. They had to come up and shake your
Mm-hmm.
hand. And that's cool. And it's usually not the joke I thought. It's quite often it'll be the spur of the moment, like, looks like Woodstock thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's, you never really know.
Now, do you try with
Yeah.
your improv background to? Sorry, Wayne. Do you try with your improv background to implement that in your stand-up? Meaning, do you try to do like time up front where you're just fucking around to try to bring some stuff in, or do you like implement it into your jokes in general?
So for me, what improv did was I don't need to have my set super memorized. I know my bullet points. I know how I want to get there. But what I like is occasionally something happens and inspires like a quick offshoot and then get back on. There was a show we did down in at Mario's Ambiance Cafe. Rocco, I'm trying to remember his last name right now, but he puts on a good show down there. He's doing like 3 or 4 a year now. But right up front, like this group of guys, it was like, why'd you come out to a comedy show? And they just were on their phones the whole time and just not paying attention and kind of a little disruptive. And so when I went up, I kind of caught on that was going on, and I deliberately made an awkward silence, but gave the audience some body language so that they understood what was happening. And
Mm.
if I didn't have the improv, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. And so all of a sudden they figure out I'm looking at them and I go, don't worry, I'll come back. And instead of like roasting the guy, like I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, but when I came back, I said, sir, who put you up front? What? Because you're a good looking man. Like you're distractingly handsome. Like it's bothering me a lot that you're up here. Like, folks, if you don't see him, he's so good looking. I want to go home and make him breakfast in the morning. That's how effing good looking he is. And like, everyone was dying. And then he said his name was Kevin. We all knew his name was not Kevin, but everyone was calling him Kevin for the rest of the night. That's magic.
It is. It is. Yeah, we had Nick Taco at a show a couple months ago, and there was this table to the left of us that sucked the whole night. And all of us were just like, that table sucked. Damn it. We lost it. And Nick went up, and the first thing he did was start talking to that table. And he, like, diffused them and did a whole thing. I was like, man, that's how you handle that. That's for sure.
Yeah. But I think there's a pressure sometimes for people to feel they have to engage. Mm-hmm. And if that's not you, if you're not there, don't. You know, like, because Matt Devlin is doing shows down in Whitman. Great venue, audience was fantastic, but there were just people who just didn't want to. And it was like you came to the part where it was comedy. It's not like we just go over the bar. Like this was exclusively for comedy. So the people who went before me, you could see the frustration. And I went, "Don't worry, if they're talking when I go up, I'm going right after them." And so literally, they were yapping away, and I just went, "Okay, the first 3 minutes of my set are now gone. I'm going right for them." And it was like machine gun fire. And the crazy thing was, like, I was rude. Like I was rude and dirty. And like the two women who were yapping really loud were in tears laughing at it. They were like, they loved being made fun of. And I was like, okay, negative attention's better than no attention.
I love people like that. Not necessarily just at comedy shows, just in general. Like so there was I used to work at a parts store, and I had this one customer who was a Lebanese guy, and very angry and very mean, and he would really like dig into you, would call you a fucking asshole, tell you he was going to cut your hands off and cut your head off, like one of those kind of guys. And one day, I was a store manager at the time. One day, one of my drivers went there to drop something off and didn't say anything to him because he's like, he's an asshole. I'm not saying anything. I dropped it off and came back. I got a phone call from this guy. He's like, hey, your fucking driver came over here, didn't even say hi to me. I'm like, well, don't be an asshole. And he's like, what, you're saying it's my fault? I'm like, yeah, you're a fucking asshole. Stop being an asshole. Be nice to people. And he started dying laughing. Like, he was just dying laughing so hard. And from that point on, I just knew some people, you just have to give it back to them. Like, regardless of the situation, they just love it. They thrive on it.
Yeah.
The cuntiest people I've ever met in my entire life, always, there's an easy way to break through to them, and it's just to go, shut up. And they're like, okay. Like, because they know that what they are. Like, you don't go through your whole, like me, I don't go through my whole life knowing I'm pleasant. I'm not. And it's, and I get that.
I'll second that.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, people, they don't realize that, like, a halfway decent comic has the microphone. They have the ability to speak over you the entire time. Mm-hmm. Trying to engage them is a lose situation 90% of the time. So it's that 10% that somebody's just nice or they're new. You can mess with them, but like, why?
So I wasn't sure I was going to be able to find a way into this, but this is perfect. Did you guys see the article out of Spain?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Yes, I did.
So there was Anthony. There was this guy. I think he was a singer. He was considered he's like a right winger over there, and he posted a photo of his 3-month-old baby. And a comedian posted something along the lines of, "Is a really slim chance that kid doesn't grow up gay and sucking black cock." And this guy, the musician, was basically like, "I'm gonna come to one of your shows and make you fucking say that to my face." And he did. Wow. There's a video. He went up on stage, punched the comedian, and then basically called him a piece of trash. He's like, "Say it to my face. Say it right now. Yeah. Say it."
Yeah, see, that's why... See, Wayne interacts in the Facebook world quite a bit, and he gets himself into little arguments sometimes, too, that are hilarious. And
once yesterday, that was it.
Once yesterday, he gets himself into hilarious arguments on there, and I'm like, man, someone's gonna come punch Wayne's face out of fucking.
Once yesterday for 23 comments.
It was only 4.
No, you only had 4, but there were 23 comments because I was like, "What the hell happened?"
Oh, you saw it.
Oh, I did.
I don't know.
It couldn't handle
I'm
himself.
not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I was laying on my bed on my tummy with my legs kicking in the air, texting like a 13-year-old girl. I was into it.
Do you have a 13-year-old girl?
No,
Then how do you know they text like that?
I watched.
You know what? Chris Hansen wants to see you. Go sit in the corner.
Yeah, exactly. He even toned that down. He's like a 13-year-old
Yeah.
girl on their tummy.
Yeah. Thank you for making her a teenager at least. You creep.
Yeah, I don't know what human instinct that, because primordially, when you see tits and you're like, oh yeah, like you know what it is. It's an instinct from time. But what is the I need to comment on Facebook and get in an argument primordial feeling that you get? Because you do get something. You get tunnel vision when you get in those argument modes. Because I've done it before where you're like, I'm fucking in. And I don't know where does that come from, Wayne?
I honestly don't know because I don't do that a lot. I think it was just for me. I have a big bias against lack of a majority of talking with lack of background knowledge. But normally I just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, you don't like that? You don't like when people do that?
No, I hate that.
That's a unique viewpoint.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It was a bad decision. It was a bad decision, but I also I felt the need to just vocalize it because I felt like there was some slander going on there.
Yeah, I was definitely egging you on.
I think in a lot of ways, like people have good intentions most of the time when they're trying to draw attention to something, and they don't always think it out on both sides of the fence, right?
I agree
So
with
that
that.
example of like the thing in Spain, like that's a 3-month-old. Why would you ever think that was fair game?
I agree with that. That was very poor taste.
I think if we could all agree to the rules of like mafia hitmen, no women, no kids.
Yeah.
Like that's you got to come into it. I mean, I also believe that in the world that we're in, sometimes people just need a good throat punch to kind of go, oh, you're not the toughest person in the room. And that includes me. But I think people, they personalize it and it's hard to separate from it because they see it. And there's no tone to it. You can't hear somebody go, is that really how it's supposed to be? Versus, is that how it's supposed to be?
Yeah, I was thinking that too, and when I was, that whole thing, that would have been a very for my little interaction. That would have been a very different conversation if it was you saying this to me right now, or that person saying it to me right now, because you could see the face, you can see you can hear that, like you said, the intonations and the way people say things, and there's an immediate connection there of this is what I think, this is how I'm feeling versus how the other person is thinking and feeling.
Their hearts are in the right place. Their hearts are all in the right place. Everybody that was arguing, like in that whole conversation, like I feel like everybody was in their heart doing the right thing. The problem with them is their brains were in trash cans or in their own assholes. Like so dumb. like your heart could be so good, but your dumb brain is rattling around up there.
And it's everybody's want to be right. You know what I mean? But in the end,
I don't even think it's want to be right. I don't think because they don't give a shit about facts anymore. It has nothing to do with that. They want to get a play. They want to play Fortnite, and whatever team they're on, they want that team to win. That's like the fucking goal. It doesn't matter what it is. They're like, score points for the team.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes it seems that we're in a world right now or an environment where one side or another or both sides actually will say the most crazy, bizarre thing, right? And it feels like no one's buffering that back. Like there's no middle ground. And then we have these moments where we see something on Facebook and someone finally can say something to try and say, this needs to be corrected. This needs to be right. But they didn't take a moment to breathe and say, I know 5 people in this feed. Can I talk to them sidebar and go, what's this all about? And get some information from someone they trust. Yep. And say, oh, okay. I mean, it feels like, especially on Facebook, it's just the more people were reacting to any post, the more it's being shown constantly in your feed as if it's new. Yep. And that just feeds into that, And then the thing is, like, you were defending a friend and people who have produced work and created work for not just you, but other people, and you see them doing good things, and you know the bigger picture. we're supposed to stick up for our friends. We're supposed to defend people who we believe in, and we're supposed to speak up. It's just everyone's speaking up now.
I know.
Yeah, and, everybody. I've been saying this forever. Everybody has a thought, and nobody should let it out. Just keep it in.
Yeah, remember gangs in New York and shit like that, where you had to like attach a letter to a pigeon's butthole or whatever the fuck you did to send letters to people, and you had to really it was a whole thing to get it out there to the people. And I don't think you would just be like, your mom's a whore or something like that and send it out. Like, you would think about what you would say. I think
Dear sir, I wish to talk about your soiled undergarments and how they smell of your mother. Bring my pigeon! I mean it!
Hey, the beheading yesterday, I gotta say, was not diverse enough. I really think...
It's funny going back, I don't want to say prior to Facebook, when that was still kind of in its infancy. You're right. Nobody. I don't think there were many people that would talk to one another that way. Like there was a guy we worked with, used to semi be part of Anthony's family, and
ooh, that's not oddly specific.
Yeah, just in case he listens, he knows who he is, and I hope he doesn't remember this. But when I say this, it'll trigger something in him, and he throws a little fit in his house. I love him, but we had like a little tiff at work one day, and I just said, "Hey, suck my balls," and he went, "Excuse me," and then I immediately knew I fucked up. It was like, "Suck my balls." He was like, real cute. Go away.
Wow, yeah, that was a battle of two people who could never fight ever to anything out of paper bags. That would have been so funny to watch, the slap fight you guys have.
Oh my god.
It would have been like watching two jackrabbits, like...
I'm going to record. I love this kid. He's one of my favorite people in the world. But sometimes working together, we just didn't jive. But we had
no, there was just
like that.
The problem with social media is that there used to be this beautiful serum that you can inject into your veins back in the old days, where you go to the town hall and you just pick a random guy and you'd be like, he touched my sister. And everybody would get so mad and you'd get to kill the guy in the town hall and you guys would be like, yeah. And it would be like that. That's how towns bonded. That's how you move forward. And social media is that feeling mainstreamed into your veins all the time. That's all it is. So it's so hard to stay away from that because you want to kill the guy who you theoretically touched some guy's sister that's lying about it, or a witch. The witches, that was a great time. That was the best time for that. Wayne's related to a witch too, I think.
Yeah, Ann Putnam.
And
some of my best friends are actually witches, so I get it.
The Wiggins.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Yes.
I'm sorry. My relative was not a witch. She was an accuser. She was had a hand in like 16 witches or something like that getting murdered.
Oh,
so good.
She's all they talk about her in Salem, but I don't know how.
So you're not allowed in Salem then?
I've been there. I keep my lineage secret.
No, that was such a good fucking power move back then. That was like calling somebody racist now was calling them a witch back then. You're like, oh, you're dead. Good luck with that. Looks like
that was like cancel culture really early on.
Yeah, that was like super cancel.
Yeah, they canceled them. That is still to this.
Well,
day.
this is I don't know how we're making this fun, but funny, but okay. Yeah. I mean, Monty Python did a much better job of this, guys. So we're trying.
If you don't think it's funny for the town scientist, the mayor, and the fucking head of like the town hall to get into the line and be like, all right, how do we get rid of this witch problem? I got it, guys. Here's what we need to do. We throw them in the water, and two things are going to happen. Either they're a witch, and they're going to float out of the water, and we got to fight them with spears and shit like that, or it's a person, and they'll drown. But either way, we're going to handle the issue. And then they all were like, yes, that's the only way.
Zero critical thinking.
Oh my god! Besides like the scabies and stuff you'd get back then, what a good time! Could you imagine just like anything you wanted to happen, you can make happen because no one could stop you?
All right, so for for whoever's watching this right now, we now have recorded documentation that I will not drink with Anthony, but I will drink with Wayne because I'm worried what would happen if I got blackout drunk around you now.
Well, I
You have
might
a
convince you to mob. Yeah, I might convince you to mob. I'm telling you, you wouldn't regret it afterwards because you wouldn't be the mobbee, you'd be the mobber. The mobbee's got to be random. I told you this.
okay.
Welcome, Open Mic Pain with Anthony and Wayne. All right, Wayne, take me out of this hole I dug myself into.
So I want to go back to improv because that is something that a while back, even before comedy, 'cause I've wanted to do stand up for 20 years. Took a very long time to do it, but improv was another thing that I always wanted to try. I never did it because I always felt like I'd end up like Michael Scott. You know, like I'd always have that one thing that I always go back to, like I've got a gun. But how does that? Does that help with your joke? So I guess where I'm going to this, when I'm practicing my sets, like when I'm driving around, I'm practicing my sets. You kind of I kind of improv a lot of lines when I'm, I come up with stuff. Does that help you when you're on stage to? I know you said you don't really remember, but does that help you to craft your jokes? You think a little easier than maybe a standard non-improv comic?
I think me personally, once I got comfortable with doing a set, right, and having my material and getting up and having that persona, I figured I needed to start blending that confidence I had with improv and bring it into stand up, right? So once I knew I had my material in my head and I knew I'd get there one way or another, what it did was it was very freeing that I could have that moment where I could see somebody and have that kind of that moment with them and endear to them. So now, and I mean, if you've ever seen me before a show, I very rarely am hanging with the other comics, which, it's not that I don't want to hang out with them. It's not that I want to be antisocial, but what I'm doing is I'm getting a read for the audience. Like, I want to see who's already had a good time before they got there, right? Who's already teasing each other, who will banter with me a little bit. So, like, I'll always say hi to the people up front. I'll go make fun of the people in the back row. And I kind of get a feel for them. So, what I'm looking for is something that in my material, I can connect to that person somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a show at this PCA event out near Concord, and it literally I ended up dropping almost my entire set because it just the audience was giving that much. But you need an audience to give you that gift. Like they need to
Yeah.
give you something good. And that's where improv comes in handy. Like when you're doing scene work with like one person or a bunch of people, you're deliberately setting that person up. Like your goal is to make them funny, not for you to be the funny person, right? So when that
Mm-hmm.
happens and when you build that relationship with the audience and they felt comfortable before, like what I loved about that PCA show was people like, oh my God, that's the guy that was talking to me because I
Yeah.
like wearing a red jacket now, but I don't wear it before the show. Like when I'm walking around, I'm just like looking normal. And then all of a sudden I come out my persona with my character and my armor and I'm wearing that red jacket. And all of a sudden like people are like, oh my God, that was the guy that was talking to me. And they're waiting for me to kind of interact with them. But it takes work.
Yeah,
Do,
I
do you
feel
not
like.
find that?
Oh, go ahead, Wayne.
Do you not find that people ask you like, "Hey, are you one of the comics?" Because I feel like every time I've been to a show and I start talking to somebody, they go, "Oh, are you one of the?" Every single time without fail.
So far, no.
That's interesting.
But I also don't engage too long. I'll be like, "Oh, you guys are sitting up front. You're daring, okay," and then I'll,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Um, but I also, I mean, let's be honest. This doesn't scream funny. Like when I'm up there, I'm funny. But you would look at me and go, "No, he works in law enforcement. He's a narc." Something like you just don't think I'm going to be the one up
Do you pull a lot of material from your job?
there.
I think you did
So
some when we were worked together at Craft Roots, but just in general, I mean, there's got to be a lot of good
I
stories.
I do occasionally. I do have some funny stuff about the jail. The problem is when you talk about your daily interactions at the jail, like most people would never believe it. It makes for a great story when you're hanging out with your buddies and having a beer.
Mm-hmm.
But if I told some people like the things that like you see over the course of your career, you'd be like, that doesn't really happen. But they really do think so. The premise of that joke is always, oh, is it like Shawshank or Orange is the New Black? And it's like, no, it's like Seinfeld. It legitimately should be a sitcom. Like it is just the things you hear, the things that people say. You're like, that was your decision process. Like I've had moments where like somebody is talking all kinds of, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kick your ass, you're fat, whatever. Be like, dude, you can't kick my ass. You couldn't outrun the fat cop that was eating a donut and chased you and arrested you. You're going to beat me up? Stop. Like, and then they look at you and they're like, you got caught. Like, don't look at me. It's not my fault. But I'll bring in some stuff about the jail, but it's tough because I don't ever want my coworkers to feel like I'm making fun of them. I also don't want anyone who has done time to feel like I'm mocking them having done time. Yeah. Like it's a serious enough thing. It's dehumanizing enough. They pay their debt and off they go. But it's one of those things where there's just some stuff that you kind of go, how do I not? And like Steve Sweeney used to do regular AA meetings at the jail. And so that's how he initially recognized me. And he was like, do jail stuff. And I was like,
Yeah, it's funny. We just had Nick Taco on. Oh, sorry, real quick. It's funny you said that. We just had Nick Taco on, and after we were talking about how he opened for Steve Sweeney one day, and Steve Sweeney walked up. He's like, hey, you work in customer service? And he's like, yeah. He goes, do some stuff about customer service, and just walked away.
Steve, by the way, if you ever get the chance to do the workshop with Steve, he'll take your 5 or your 10-minute set and you perform it, and then he literally just breaks it down, tweaks it. He'll change your body language. He just gives you such little nuggets and then you're doing a show right after that. It was absolutely amazing, and it's down at the Fox and Hound, and Mike Katrubis puts it on in Pat Cotter. Really one of the best workshops I've taken was that quick 10 minutes with Sweeney. He is very generous with what he's willing to share with you.
It's awesome. Yeah, me and Wayne are doing the Comedy Clash, so we will be down there to at least do that part of it. But I would love to do the workshop too. That'd be pretty sick.
I find that a lot of the older, more tenured comics seem to be very generous with their knowledge and their, they like we've talked to like Dobie Maxwell and Mike Katrobis and some of these older comics that have been in the game for a while, and they come on and they're more than willing to spread their knowledge, and they say, they all say, well, I'm not here to hear myself talk. I'm willing to give you the information that I know, the fuck ups I've made to help you be better. Either take it and listen or don't. Right. I think that's a really cool thing that a lot of tenured comics are willing to do.
Mike Katrubis did a workshop on the actual hosting and business end of being a comic.
Yep, I took that.
And it was phenomenal. And he brought in a guy who, I forget his name, I think it was Brian, but he was talking about getting promoted by sponsors and stuff. And that stuff I was already kind of doing. Like I was coming up with very unique ways to market certain shows. And so what I would do was like I would make beer coasters, and I would promote the event like 2 months beforehand, and I would just drop off like 200 beer coasters at the venue going, and there's a QR code to push the tickets.
Oh, that's fucking brilliant.
Right? And so the bars were loving it because they've got free coasters that are promoting the show. It's promoting them. I needed it because it's promoting ticket sales. And then the other stuff, was reach out to certain companies. So, I was lucky enough. Somebody from Chowderheads saw one of my sets talking about being from Boston. They liked it, started following me. And I said, hey, I performed from Maine, New Hampshire, Mass, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Vermont doesn't want me because I have too many teeth and I don't hump my sister. But I said, if you want, I would gladly wear a shirt promoting you guys and tag you in it. And they would sent me 5 shirts. So like I've got one for Maine, I've got one for New Hampshire, I've got one for Rhode Island, I've got 2 for Mass, and I've worn them, and then I'll tag it, and then they tag it right back and share it. And they're helping me more than I would ever be helping them,
Yeah.
But that's the stuff that like you don't get if you don't talk to people who've been around.
Yep. It's kind of like we had Alana Foden on. Have you talked to Alana at all? Do you know her?
I don't know. I don't think I do.
She runs the Soho monthly show in Hudson. She used to have a lot more shows, but she said COVID kind of screwed that all up. She's working on trying to bring some of them back. But one of the things that she does is she has a like a little stack of coupons for her show. So when she goes to Dunkin' Donuts, she gets a coffee. She goes, "Here's some coupons for you," and it's just whatever, $5 off or whatever it is, off a $20 show or $10 off a $20 show. She's like, I don't care if people are using coupons. I don't care if they use them every single show. If it's getting the butts in the seats.
Right.
She always has well-attended shows, so it works.
Yeah. And there's so many little extra above and beyonds that I think a lot of people don't do. But if they did, I think it'd be very helpful.
Yeah, that's a good lesson to the fucking people like out there. If you're gonna get booked on a show, is like try to go a little bit above and beyond marketing for it, and I bet you'll get booked on more of them. Instead of like a lot of people are just like the day of the show, they're like, "There's a flyer, I'm gonna be here."
Like, yes, the thing that always drives me bonkers is like, you see it at open mics and you see it at other places, but if you got booked on as an opener or a featured spot or a guest spot, whatever, right? If you're not promoting the show for the person who put you on, one, shame on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I've been picked up, I promote whoever's promoting the event. I will follow and like the venue that it's at. Yep. I will start sharing their events. Like I did a show up in, the Greater Falls Comedy Club up in Auburn. And I was opening up for Michelle Traina, and the guy, I think his name's Lenny, sent her a message. He goes, "The guy that's opening for you is prolific, like just sharing all our stuff. Like I can't wait to meet him." Like that's what we should be doing. Like they're giving you time, whether you're getting paid or not. Show some respect to the venue. Show, connect to that audience that way, and that's how you get work.
Yeah, and especially even selfishly, that's how you get jokes. Like a real crowd is what feedback your jokes and strengthens them and irons them, and you fucking need it. So any way you get the crowd, get the crowd. If you got to promote the shit out of the show to get booked on it, do that. Why? What else are you gonna do?
You know where improv actually came in really handy is moments like I was in Auburn. Have you guys ever done that venue?
No.
Okay,
I send them 800 messages because I live in Maine. I'm like, put me on. And nothing.
So there's the bridge into the next town. It has this beautiful tribute to veterans, right? There's this full size Jeep climbing rocks. They literally have what looks like a full Harrier jet just sitting ready to go. And so I have this joke about people who always have to do the shot of a fireball before the night's over, and they're going to get you in trouble. And I said, so the beautiful thing about being a brewery is no one's going to do fireball. None of us are going to get so drunk we're going to go to the next town over and pick a fight because not for nothing, they got a goddamn military jet ready to go. By the way, are you guys worried about Canada? Why do you need that kind of firepower on your border? And they loved it because I clearly have the Boston accent for them. And they were like, he walked around. He saw the neighborhood. He tied this in. And that's definitely not part of my set. I'm never going to be able to use that joke again, but...
Yeah, but a little bit of it's similar to, like you said, about talking to people in the audience. If you can put a little nugget in there of connectivity with the audience, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually I get really nervous at the beginning of sets. I always know the first joke I'm going to do, but I never really know how I'm going to start it. And I do that on purpose so I can start the set by just I'm going to talk about something randomly into the room, whether, like you said, I like to scope it out before and see if there's anything I can improv in the beginning. Because I don't know, it's more exciting. And it feels like you can get, like you said, if there's a gift that the crowd gives you, it might change the whole way that you enter into bits and stuff like that. And I don't know.
There's something about walking out in that first 30 seconds and getting them to connect and laugh, even just a little, sets the tone for the rest of your set. They're you've already broken that seal of, okay, he got me, I'm laughing, I'm not going to be stoic, let it go.
It's true. Yeah, it's usually for me. It's I say that I have kids and I hate them immediately. Everybody connects.
So that was Mother's Day weekend in Maine, and my birthday was on Mother's Day. So I always walk out and I'll just be like, "Hey fuckers, Mainers, how are you? I just right. I'll just change it. Oh, I meant to say, but I said, you know what? It's Mother's Day weekend. Any mothers here? And they're like, ah. And I went, yeah, fuck Mother's Day. My birthday is tomorrow too. I'm tired of sharing it. And they were just like, but that's like, I can make that joke once every 5 years the way the calendar works. So
It's true.
Yeah.
That is horseshit, though. That sucks. That's a terrible, terrible luck of the die to do that. I couldn't imagine the power that my wife would wield on that day. That's tough. Oh, man. Yeah, well, that's what happens. So, all right. We're going to get towards the end of wrapping this up, I think, Wayne, unless you got your end of show questions.
Yeah, one quick one. Who are some of your comedian influences? Like anybody you grew up watching where you're like, man.
Yeah. So see this gray? That's because I am old. So I grew up
I wasn't
with.
going to say it. I was trying to beat around the bush a little bit.
That's all right. You don't have much of a bush on the top of that head to beat around, so don't keep whacking it. See, I may be old, but full head of hair.
You have some luscious locks. So maybe
thank you. It's a coif.
We can, hook up and I'll give you some darker hair. You can give me.
Are you asking for some head? That's just wrong. Do that offline. Offline.
I've never
in
seen.
Front of an
Wayne's bald as fuck. It's true for sure. He's so goddamn bald. But I've known him so long, 13, 14 years now, Wayne, maybe longer. Never had hair. Never one time.
I started going bald very early. I was going bald at like 21, 22.
Is this like an alopecia kind of thing? Like, are you bald everywhere? Or?
I think it's a bad diet. I think my hair was just like, fuck this, I'm out.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. I think, wasn't it like, so there's a time where you had a long-term girlfriend that left you. Did you lose hair Homer Simpson style, like right after that? Like the whole...
Don't! Blew off your head like a firework on the 4th of July. We quit. We're out.
I thought you were gonna say fucking Colin Quinn was because I'm like, you could do Colin Quinn if they do a movie on him, couldn't they?
I hear that one a lot. I have heard that. So Colin he's brilliant. So like for me, it was George Carlin, Robin Williams, Richard Pryor, Red Fox. Then you have Colin, Dennis Leary. There was another Boston comic that really just absolutely killed. I mean, and then like now, like there's people I work with that I just absolutely are totally impressed with. Like, I love being around Mike Katrubis and Pat Collins. They're fun to watch. They know they're super tall or super short. They play into it really well. They own their body mechanics amazingly. And then, Carolyn Plummer, I was, so lucky to have worked with her a couple of times. But then, up and coming Megan Carroll. Like, I've worked with Megan a couple times. I've worked with her on movies, and she did the origin. Like, we were talking behind the set, on a set, just waiting and holding, and she was literally telling me the origins of her jokes. And I had to ask her to stop. I was like, I was in tears laughing. Like I was hurt. And I'm like, you've got to stop. The story to your joke is better than the joke. Like, you've got to tell that part of it. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of funny people out there. And I like people who I may not agree with their opinion, but they'll make me think.
I found that the last, 16 months of doing comedy has really changed the way I interact with watching and listening to comedy. Like, I don't laugh really anymore. I kind of listen to it and pick it apart and go, oh, I see what he did there. That's pretty funny. I like that. If something actually makes me really laugh, I know it's a really, really damn good joke.
I know it's so hard to tell fucking jokes to comedians. Like, if I go to Katrobis and I'm like, hey, Mike, let me tell you a joke, and he likes it, he'll be like, that is I like that. That's wonderful.
Yep.
You're like, damn, man, your eyes. Tell your eyes that.
And you can't do it to regular people either.
Tell your eyes that. Oh my god, that needs to be on a mug.
Tell your fucking eyes that. It's the window to the soul.
Like I'll come up with some joke idea, and I'll text it to Anthony and go like that sucks, and I go I'll show him, and I'll go to work and I'll kind of work it into a conversation. The problem is people throw in their 2 cents because they don't know you're trying to test a little bit of material there, so you can't really get it out the way you want to say it.
He just says that because they bomb also when I tell him that it sucks. He goes, I go try to work. And he goes into work and he's like, what are they? They teeth. The lady didn't have teeth. And
That joke does pretty well. And she didn't. She worked at a gas station in Bellingham, Massachusetts.
Now, do you sit down and do like a writing session? Because I've started doing that lately with a few people. And honestly, like when I've done it, it's always been one-on-one. And like we come in with our notebooks and with a couple of like loose notes, and then we just start evolving the joke right there. And what I have found is anyone who is sitting across from us at the bar is now getting a free show. And that's how I know it's working. Like I know when the ears are going, what did he just say? Oh my God. Like, do you guys do writing sessions with each other at all?
No, we've tried to do a couple, like similar to this, but minus the recording. But I mean, with him up in Maine and me down here, I'm in Pepperell.
We do want to go to
person.
We do want to go to Boyle's, Andrew Boyle. There, he's got something. I forgot the date of it, but it's in like Kingston, Massachusetts. A writing.
I did his. Group. Yeah, I did his on Zoom when they were still doing Zoom. I did one, and that was great. I ran a couple jokes by, and I got some good feedback and some good tags. But they started doing it in person, and that's like an hour and a half drive for me on a Tuesday. Yeah. I think it is. I just can't do that.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's almost like what you said with improv. You need gift from the person you're working with or the audience. I almost feel like you need that with like the fucking god of creativity, where a joke to really hit, it's almost like shit, it comes out of nowhere. It's like it's so hard for me to write it down and be like I worked this out of the marble, out of the ground into a joke. It's like no, I gotta find it. It's gotta come to me in the desert.
A good test of your improv skills would really be to get on TikTok and then do a reaction or a rebuttal or a stitch to something where somebody says something like there's this woman down somewhere in the South and she makes the most delicious looking fried food. It's got that perfect sound and it's always some outrageous dish. And I saw it and I was like, how do I react to this? And I went, I would marry this woman. Ma'am, do you have a wedding ring on your left hand? Because if you don't, would you like one? And then she posted another video and I went, ma'am, I've asked you before. I still don't see it. I'm asking again for your hand in marriage. And then people are just dying at they see her and then I come in and go, would you marry me? Of course he would ask that. He's a fat fuck out of Boston and wants fried food.
One of my favorite things about running jokes by each other. Me and Anthony text each other. I don't think we've had a non-comedy conversation since we've started. It used to be all video games. Now I don't think it's anything but comedy. But is when we give each other a tag. Like, let's say Anthony gives me a tag. I'm like, that's fucking great. And I do it on stage, and then it does really well. And I go, fuck, I wish I thought of that, but he did. But it was good, thank you. And then I give him a tag, and it does really well. And I go, why didn't... I love that it happened, but that was mine.
Wayne's trying to say he's petty. Yeah, that was a really long way to say you're petty.
Well, you know what it is? You've just got more hair. I mean...
Yeah, it is.
All over, too. He's like a fucking spider monkey.
And more tags, too, you bitch.
I got to do that.
In all seriousness, though, one of my favorite things is, helping somebody say, hey, why don't you try this? And then watching them do it and it actually working. I found that when I went to go watch Anthony at Navigation Brewing when he opened for Christine Hurley.
Oh my God, she's awesome. She's so gracious.
She was fantastic.
Funny. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I was like, oh my God, it's my grandmother. She's gonna be like, she's so sweet too. Like, oh my God, you're so nice. Then she goes up there and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, grandma likes threesomes. Just be careful. Like you first start finding out stuff, you're like, whoa.
Yeah,
But
I
but I
did
really love.
that. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I did that morning capo thing down in Connecticut, and I wanted to go just to get the time. So I drove 2.5 hours for 5 minutes, right? And I had this joke about something, and I won't say it because I want to keep the joke. But Alexis Elena, do you know her?
No.
She
Was it
won the.
Alexis Crisaldi? She goes by.
No, no, Elena. She actually won the contest that night. And I was going to leave at the intermission because it was a long ride back. But she said, "Hey, do you mind if I give you a note on that joke?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And it was a double down on the punchline I delivered, and it stopped me dead in my tracks. Funny, and I went, "It's in, like it's in." And then I stayed to watch her set after the intermission. And I was like, oh my God, she absolutely killed. So when I was leaving, I told Capo, I go, hey, she gets my vote. I got to go home. Like, she was absolutely amazing. So
She's
I
great.
reached out to her, and she's going to do one of the shows for me down in the Working Man Distillery.
Was
And
this
she's like,
last weekend?
yes.
Last weekend?
Yeah.
So okay, so she goes by Alexis Cristaldi on Facebook.
Oh,
She's been on the show. She is so funny. We did a show with her at Fortune Bar the first time I ever saw her, and the crowd started getting pretty rowdy, and she got up there and just boisterous voice and just brought them in.
yeah.
Did 10-15 minutes of absolute wonder, and then we had her on the show and found out she's been doing comedy just as long as us, and we were like, get the fuck out of here. Like,
Yeah.
that
Some people just bring a game that you go, wow, that was
she's
really
fantastic.
good.
Yeah, 20th Somerville in the Jungle, where she's on a show with us that we put together on there, and so please buy tickets. That's a 10 p.m. show. I don't know if hopefully people will be there. Please be there. If someone's like go to a 10 p.m. show, I'd be like, it's like, am I gonna be able to like cheat on my wife, but in a vacuum that won't affect reality, and I can do because then I'll go at 10 p.m. But if you don't have that technology, I'm not. But yeah, please go to it. All right, Wayne, that it? We did it?
I don't think I have anything else.
Bam! Alex, where can the people find you?
Find me on alexmancomedy.com. It's got links to all the socials. It's got my schedule. It's got contact info. If you're looking for some time and you think you got a decent 5-minute set for me to look at, let me know because I'm hopefully creating a little bit more work for everybody in the area. So, because I know I reached out to Wayne and said, hey, I've seen your set. Come down to one of these shows. I'll put you on.
Hell yeah.
That's what this is about. Like I love getting people up and getting them some time and having some fun.
That's one of the best things about it is just seeing all these people that you become friends with and you just go up and have fun and do really well and I was going to say watching Anthony open for Christine Hurley and then also getting to see Jacques and Matt Brown and Jen Howell go up and all have really killer sets. It felt just as good as if I went up there and just killed, just watching them do so well. That's such a fun part of this whole thing too. Even just being a spectator and watching your friends do well.
It's true. Yeah, you did that hosting class for Katrobus, and then you did the showcase afterwards. And I remember that was the first time I've ever seen you kill in a room full of real people. And I was like, wow, that was fucking awesome. That is true. Because a lot of the time I'm like, it should be me. No matter what anybody's getting. That's the first thought in the back of my head. But it is something about when your friends kill that is just, you can't help but feel good about it. Because I've never felt bad when anybody's killing. I'm like, that's fucking amazing. Because you know how hard it is. You do.
Yep.
I don't have a lot of time for the comics or the actors or people in general who feel that your success takes away from their success, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It just doesn't. I've been up for enough parts in a movie to know that, okay, I may look like some of these people, I may sound like some of these people, but it was probably the shirt they were wearing, or they had already looked at 30 different headshots. It just, your time comes if you just stay positive at work, and it happens, right? And that's the thing is there's too many people who get wrapped up on if you're getting something, why are they not getting something? Lauren Sims sent me a great text behind the scenes one day. She said, no one is ever going to see the amount of times you have failed to get where you're going, but they'll always see you posting that you're creating work. They'll never know, like when they say, oh, that was easy, or you're lucky, or it just falls in your lap. They don't know the hours you're putting into dealing with owners of venues and trying to make this work and cutting a deal and then finding comics. Like, that's the thing. So I respect people who grind and who just go up and try. Like, go up and fail. Go up and fail 1,000 times. Because that means you're willing to try.
Yeah.
Goddamn right it is.
I say it all. I've said it many times on this podcast, but even like do you know Mr. Rue, Sean Ruiz, and
Yes.
Tommy Wires and all them, Jay Gillespie.
Tommy's actually hosting my show on Saturday.
Oh, is he?
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tommy. Yeah, they're all great. And one of the things I love most about them is just support each other. Just whatever. Like I've said it many times. It doesn't take any time at all to. Oh, Alex is doing a show. Share it. These guys are great. Go check it out if you're in the area.
Yeah.
And if everybody did that, and more shows were selling and more shows were doing well, that makes room for even more shows and means more spots for more people. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't see, and they kind of think the way that you just said, oh man, these people, like, why is that guy on a show and I'm not?
Right.
I'm not
Yes,
going to
remember.
I'm not going to share that.
A strong tide raises all ships, motherfuckers, and also floods Wayne's basement. Have a great week, everybody.
You don't have much of a bush on the top of that head to beat around, so don't keep whacking it.